So welcome back everybody, this is Paul again, and I have another of my series about esoteric psychology and esoteric philosophy. A little bit about my background, as mentioned in many of my videos. I basically have studied a lot of different subjects over my years, and particularly got interested in meditation and esoteric subjects like metaphysics and so on, a long time ago when I was around 20 years old. I've been meditating for a long time, and the techniques that I practiced over the years I still use, and they're very profound. But along the way I've also listened to a lot of different people, a lot of different yogis and gurus, and met some Mahatmas and so on, and had a lot of beautiful experiences over the years. And I'm trying to share a little bit of my understanding about the awareness and our mental states and so on. I don't have a degree in psychology. I'm not a psychotherapist. Although I've met some, and some of my friends are. But I have my own experiences and my own inner awareness, and I found that very attracted to the ancient systems of awareness, which is all based on oneness. You see, because modern psychology, like I said, I don't have a degree, and all I've known is I've read and listened to people and talk, and it seems to be, it's almost like we almost have this little bottle of awareness here, and we're all these little bottles full of consciousness, and each of us is our own little separate little thing, and we're all a nice little mix of different kinds of thoughts and feelings and so on. And that bottle gets all pent up and a lot of stress or something, and then eventually we have to kind of like pop the cork, so to speak, and kind of get our own feelings and more in tune with the cosmos and the broader existence and our fellow man and so on. And it gets very complicated. I've seen some of the very top line psychological books, like from Carl Jung and so on, and they're just really thick. And there's this one book that they have, the psychologists have, about the so-called diagnostic book, and it has these codes, and it's very fat, and when you have to file your insurance claim for a psychotherapist, you have to kind of, find out some little code that'll work with the insurance company so that you can get your money. So this is what's become of psychology these days, and of consciousness. And in a way, it's good that I don't have my own so-called expertise in modern psychology, but I do have an understanding, and I'd like to share it with you, and I'd like people to consider a little bit about the ancient system of awareness, because it's a very old problem. Who are we and what are we? And there's been a lot of different testimony over the thousands of years of people who had profound experiences and tried to share with us a little bit about the majesty and the beauty of the human awareness. And the problem is today we get a lot of labels, and we try to attach a label onto something and a kind of personality and so on, and that's really doesn't fit in with the whole continuum of consciousness that is based on the oneness. So in some of the videos I made little exercises. There's many different exercises that we can do, but I like to give the analogy of, say, if you take a little drop of colored water and you put it into a pool of just clear, beautiful water, little by little that color will slowly dissipate out into the vastness of that clear water, and at one point you won't even know, you can't tell that there was ever a little color there. But on the other hand, on a very tiny microscopic subatomic level, you might say, that water is now slightly tinted, and in some ways there's an analogy there between the oneness of the infinite consciousness that we can't really say anything about. We just have to say there's this underlying bubbling awareness, a tiny fraction of which we can perceive in our lifetime. But it pervades everything, and this is what the ancients said, because how are we going to know our own awareness? That's the problem, because do we know our awareness by thought? You just sit around and think, well, what am I, and just list all your likes and desires? Is that how we, because we're really more than that. And there's An analogy I've given in some of my presentations about, let's say there's a bottle, and there's a bottle has air in it, there's a cap on it, and the air inside the bottle is exactly the same as the air outside the bottle, which is connected to the infinite, the whole Earth's atmosphere. So the only thing that's a problem is there's a cap on there, and the cap is like our little identity that we keep accumulating, and some people go through their whole lives and they keep building that cap, and they keep making it even more capped, and then by the end of their life they're just this tiny little ball of shriveled up little, what did I do this for, this life thing, you know. But on the other hand, there are people like children, you know, they come out and they don't have any concepts, they don't have that cap on, they're just like, wow, everything's fantastic, you see. So if we want to understand our own identity, we have to be able to take the cap off and try to get a sense of who we are in a much deeper and broader sense, because there's a bridge between the deeper parts of our awareness that, you know, there's subtle parts of our body mechanism and so on, intuitive sensing and psyche and so on, that are way ahead of our conscious mind. They're already way down the road sensing things, intuiting things and so on. And our lazy physical body, we might be tired and so on, but we're not quite in sync with that, all the different levels of our own awareness. Because we don't have like the different parts of ourselves. We don't have like, in one sense you can say, well, yes, there's an emotional part of us, and then there's a mental part of us and all that, but at one level we go back to this oneness. There's a completeness of our own being, and we don't have to become anything. And that's one of the problems, because in psychology and psychosis, the people, they struggle all their lives to try to be a particular thing. Maybe it was their parents, or maybe there's their spouse, maybe their own desires, the concepts of society. They're trying to be something that intuitively, on some deep level, they're just not. We're just not that. The society that we live in is so artificial that in very few cases around the world, human beings are allowed and are enabled and in a situation where they can fully explore the fullness of their own being by being creative and not having to just have a lot of judgments and concepts and religion and costumes and so on just jammed onto us, you see. So the problem is, you know, when we as adults, we grow up and we start perceiving everybody, when we're little, we're friends with everybody. When we get a little older, we start saying, I don't know, do I know you? Are you a red person or a blue person? So we start getting into these divisions, which are entirely artificial, and there's no solution for it, because it just leads to endless conflict and endless conflict and endless conflict. The only way to have some kind of harmony and peace of mind in our life is to go back to this concept of unity, the unity of consciousness, the oneness of awareness, the oneness of beingness, in which we participate, and we have some sort of role and drama to play in this, and we basically can get enthusiastic about it and figure that out and get in a deep place just for start feeling, well, who are we? What do we want to do in this world? What if the universe was just wide open for us? Okay, forget the religion, forget the concepts, forget the gender, forget everything for a while. As a little spark, little flame of that infiniteness, what do we want to do? We've got a short life here. You see, so some part of that life, at least some really important part of that life, is to figure out and feel who we are in the broadest sense, in the completest sense, in our own comfort with our own being, beyond a place of judgment and so on. And a lot of people, over the thousands of years, various cultures have experimented with their awareness, because what do we have to do here? We have our awareness. So if we don't experiment with our awareness and try to feel who we are as beings, then what are we doing? We're just going shopping and performing some mindless repetition of different activities and so on, and we never grow, we never expand in awareness, and we never come to a sense of rest in our own presence. Because our presence is linked to the whole presence, and we cannot, the real psychology has to do with oneness, has to do with integration, has to do with alignment, so that we have an alignment between who we know we are deep inside as a soul on a journey here for a short time. There's a wisdom there innately. You say, hey, look, we're only here for a very short time. We got to do something. And then there's all the other layers that come on us. And later on, we put our own layers on. And then we, as human beings, we often get very, very confused about who we are in the simplest sense of the word. And that causes all kinds of psychological problems, and we won't need to go into that. That's because those big fat books. But the solution to what is the goal of psychological practice? To have an integrated person who's aligned, who's productive, who's creative, who's happy, who's kind, who's producing and feeling very fulfilled in their life. But that's not a new problem. It's not, it came long before Freud. The psychological needs of a human being have to do even more than sex and food. There's something even more profound than sex and food. There's a need to, because there's plenty of people in the world who have plenty of sex and plenty of food, but they don't have a sense of real deep completion and sense of, yes, that's what I should be doing. I feel a great sense of fulfillment. They don't have that. And when we don't have that in our life, we start to have all kinds of problems. Now, the thing is that the good news is that the human solution is very simple. And it's been said that it's very simple by many, many teachers over many, many thousands of years. But it has to be said again and again, because it's a matter of taking our attention from the outside to the inside, and then doing a little kind service out into the world and participating in things, and we start to integrate in a natural flow within our breath of expanding awareness. So I went through some of these things in the previous video, and I want to emphasize again and again, I talk about this various kinds of consciousness, because when we look at another human being, the ancients, the wise people would go, okay, they see, if you see correctly, if you see with the feeling, with the eyes of oneness, when you look at another human being, and not just imagination, not just like, oh, I would like, when you see another being, you look around and go, even in just an animal, you can see, oh my goodness, look at this, it's amazing how this being, I mean, there's a point of reverence everywhere we look. You see, we look at each other, we look at a mirror, we see ourselves, everything we see, it's all kind of magic in a way. How is this body happening? How are we getting healed every minute? How is this breathing going on and on? How is that all happening? Because there's a oneness, and that keeps on, and we're just on along for the ride here for a little while. So we have the opportunity to listen to some of the teachings and some of the modern people and ancient people say, look, we're a vehicle of consciousness, and when we align our awareness in a harmonious way, and we use different sound, we align our breath, and we participate in the cosmic matrix, the fluid web of awareness, we build a bridge from our deepest part of our consciousness all the way through to our body, and we do that by just aligning and resting and not disturbing everything. From regular practice, after a while, you start to feel this beautiful, beautiful integration. And it makes a person just much more happier and calmer and joyful. And when I encourage people, when you look at another person, You know, when we look at our loved ones, we sometimes people fall in love, or you see a child, you go, "Oh my goodness, wow, I adore that person." But you see, you look at a stranger, you go, well, "I don't know them." You see, but the reality is, you look at one person that you love, if someone else loves that other person that you don't, so you don't know them. But maybe if you knew them, you might love them. See, so there's uh, a lot of spiritual growth and a lot of bliss in trying to open yourself up to see the divine in other human beings, because again, we're here for such a short time. You see, and all the great teachers know, look, we're here for a short time, and please listen, because, you know, we don't know when the last minute will be, but fortunately we're here now, and we're happy and everything, but, you know, we have that chance right now to get onto that ferry, you might say, and go head out into the deep oceans of awareness. And I encourage people to learn something about meditation. All the real great meditations are really, really simple. And again, psychology, if we're looking for a goal in psychology of being happy and feeling fulfilled, we can feel extremely fulfilled when we recognize and experience, first of all, a beautiful flow within our own system of vehicles here. Body, just the warmth, just the natural physical health. That helps a lot. Prepare the body. And relax the mind. Just let the mind, you cannot harness the mind like a rodeo. You just, off it goes, you just try to swing this little thing and catch the mind. It's not like that, because the mind gets tired. See, the activities of our thought process is basically, you know, for who knows how long and how many lives, that part of our restless awareness is grasping. Okay, is it this? Is it this? Can I hang on to this like a bird flitting through a tree? It grasps on this twig, and then that twig, and then this twig, and then that twig. And after a while, the bird gets tired. At the very end of the day, the bird goes hopping back to its nest, and okay. So we can allow ourselves to come to rest after the tiredness of seeing all the duality and doing all the activities that we got to do, but to come back, and our perceiving organ, the full organ of our perception is not just, it's kind of like we have 5 fingers in one hand, and we have these 5 senses, but behind the 5 senses there's this mind, there's an integrating, it's not detached, you see. So if you have one finger less, okay, let's say people lose one sense, they often have the other senses get adapt. But you can see people with physical fingers missing, and they still manage to do a lot of things in their life. If we're lucky enough to have all our faculties and so on, then we can realize that all of that goes back to one place, again, the oneness. And even within the body, we have the physical part of the brain, or wherever, all the nerves and so on, but deep down there's a seer that sees, there's a hearer that he hears, there's a consciousness and underlying awareness that is the plane of perception. And how do we know that? Because, well, you see, this is the mystery of consciousness. You see, when people who are in psychology and so on, they want, well, what's consciousness? How do I figure it out? Well, you can't analyze consciousness. You can't catch your elbow with your hand. You see, you have to observe the mind and the activities of the mind from a neutral place, this place of perception without reaction, the non-dual, non-local place. And getting there is nothing more than just letting go. You let go and let go, like the peeling of an onion. You go, wow, there's another layer, and another layer. You get the subtler and subtler realizations. That's why practice and meditation brings us into a state of awareness, of able to perceive more and more subtle things. You see, now we don't want to be overwhelmed with things. It's just like our physical senses. We don't want to have endless noise and endless sights, and when we go into deep meditation, yes, there's visions that come, and there's things that experience and so on, there's understandings that come, but ultimately there's a place where the undifferentiated peacefulness of a silence where nothing's disturbed, where you can rest, where just like when we have our physical eyes, we can open our eyes and we can see something, or we can close our eyes and we can remember what we saw. In the same way, in a very deep place, we have our inner eye, and we can sort of shut that in a way. We don't need to see all those visions. We certainly don't want to know what everybody's thinking. So we can rest in a place of complete calmness. And I want to encourage people to go out on their own journeys and explore their own awareness, because this is our vehicle, this is our faculty. It's like this life is like a key. You're given this key, and it says, okay, what is this? Do you think it's a shopping cart, or maybe you think it's a scooter, but it's actually to a very sophisticated vehicle in which multiple levels of awareness are possible, and able to experience the fullness of being alive in a body. And I can't get into a lot of detail because it's an experience. You see, the people have to have their own inner experiences, and all I say is that, look, don't have a concept of what you must experience or should experience. If you don't experience such and such, then this and that. It's just not worth going into that, because it doesn't matter what the labels are. Ultimately, the whole purpose for us to feel as a human being a sense of our own beingness that's far beyond our body and far beyond, when the mind stops chattering and you just come to a rest like that tired bird, then you just feel you might float away. That's the part of us when you're really, really tired, you're super tired, and you fall asleep at night, and maybe you just fly away right away and you go into some blissful place. So all of that is with us, and the continuum of consciousness that goes up and down through our vehicles, it doesn't have to be, some people are focused in certain areas of their body and they get stuck. The idea is that we have this body, and all the different energy can flow smoothly, integrated in a harmonious way, if we use all our physical senses in ways that are productive and creative and spread kindness and are helpful and so on. Then there's really no problem with all the different activities that human beings do, including procreation. So we have to work and do different activities, and there's certainly the opportunity to, go inside and be really, really peaceful, and then come out and play some beautiful music, or sing, or design something. So all of this, I encourage people to not feel limited, like, oh, well, I want to be, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Mahatma. I said, I'm going to go out. I saw these people I were totally amazing people from India, and their robes and everything. I said, wow, that really inspires me. I want to have that kind of awareness. As time went by, I had a family and everything, and I had a lot of different kinds of experiences, a lot of straying off the road, basically, a lot of off the track activities and so on. But over the years, you realize that, look, consciousness, our utmost and our simplest and most fundamental part of our consciousness is there in every state of our existence, whether we're tired or sick or even drunk or whatever. There's still, our breathing is still there, our smell is still there. There's that immortal part of our own being that we have to discover and explore in depth. And it goes on and on and on. There's really no place where you say, okay, well, that's it now, I've kind of got here, It's more like, well, the more you get, the more you explore. He's like, man, I got nothing, I don't know nothing yet. There's a whole lot more to see and explore. So you know, read a lot of these books I've been recommending. I'm going to change this now. I'm going to go into some other aspects. Esoteric psychology is very profound because there's a whole lot of stuff I want to talk about in terms of how we use our energy body and how numbers and geometry work and health and all that kind of stuff. So thanks again for listening. I appreciate the good feedback, and I don't get a lot of visitors at the moment, but again, it's just one person to another. It's really fun to share. I keep learning all the time, and I feel if I helped one person or conveyed something interesting, then I have it's great. So thanks again for listening.